Missouri, and it's crazy because they're a team that's beating Florida and Kentucky, but loses to some of the lesser teams in the conference.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, very capable team. They're long, they're big. They have shot makers. Dangerous team, could beat anybody. They've shown at times that they could get wins at home, and shown at times they can play well on the road. So, be a fight, be a physical game. We just got to worry about playing our best basketball, obviously. And usually things work out when we do that.
You spend more time talking about your team since Saturday than your next opponent?
Yeah, we kind of do a mix of both, but it's mainly us. I think at the end of the day, we talk about, we played 3 games last week. It's Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday. And we played maybe the best game we played all year at Georgia. We played one of the best games we played all year at Alabama. Even though we didn't win, it's irrelevant. It's how we played. We played great. We put 97, almost won at a spot that no one ever wins at, with their whole roster and added roster, right? And then we just didn't play a good game versus Florida. But, you can be short-term and forget that a week before we played a great game, and 3 days before that we played an awesome game as well. Games before that was Mississippi State and South Carolina, where we were phenomenal. So we just got to, play like we've been playing for the most part.
Since you brought up Alabama, should y'all get a win? They play with an illegal player. So
no, I can't comment on it. I jokingly say this in every single way. So don't take one part of what I'm about to say, because I don't want no social media wars. A complete joke was, I don't want anything to be counted against an ineligible player. I just want his points not to count. And I think he scored like five or six on us, so we win. That is a joke. So nobody get out there where we have death threats going on. It's not for me to decide. Is the reality of it. Yeah.
But to that point, when the committee looks at that game in the future, do you hope that is factored in when kind of looking at resumes and everything?
Well, the you hope it's got to be, but we're trying to compete and try to get the best seed for the SEC tournament. We'd love to get the 1 seed. We'd love to go try to win the league, right? We know that. I'm not talking about Alabama. I don't care about Alabama. How do they make it right for us? How is it made right for us? Right? That's the only case. I don't. They could do that. That's not my deal. How's it made right for us? Because they're not going to be able to play with their full roster against the other teams when we had to play against their full roster. And that's just that's something that, you hope, I don't know how that's made right for us. And for the NCAA tournament, and also, obviously, people say for the NCAA tournament, well, we got to look at this for the NCAA tournament that, you had to play against a team at full strength in that regard. But let's just throw out the NCAA tournament. Let's talk about the SEC race and the SEC seeding in a pursuit of a regular season, competing as high to try to win the SEC. You certainly that playing those guys at full strength, and they're not able to play other teams at full strength. That's a disadvantage to us. We know that. So.
When you look back at the Florida game and you look at the first half film or whatnot, how do you kind of diagnose what was going on with the shooting, and how do you prevent another 0 for 23 streak again moving forward?
Well, we if we took half court shots, we're probably gonna make more than 1 out of 27. We know that. Now they played very good defense in the game. They have a lot of length. They're good on defense. I think that our guys were a little too amped in the game. Which sometimes it takes a game with the great crowd and all that for your guys for the next time they can settle in a little bit more. But you got to just focus on getting the right shots. Early, it's not so much the open shots that we missed, but what about the shots that we got blocked that we could have dropped it off to somebody? What about the 2-on-1s that we threw out of bounds? What about the missed layups that we had? So besides those, we missed several layups, had several 2-on-1s that we didn't convert. And, it's an 11-point game at half. And not only when we were missing those shots and they're blocking it and we're going to shoot a layup and be soft and just fall down, they got a 5-on-4 going the other way. So we spotted them, 6 points there on shots we should have been able to finish, and maybe we go into halftime with a lead. I dang sure know this, the physicality of that game, we came out there physical as you can be. That's not a game where someone would poke their chest out saying there is one team out physical the other team. That shows up in rebounding. And our guys battled being undersized, were able to rebound at a very high level in that game. I mentioned this to everybody. Our guys shouldn't walk away from that game thinking we didn't play great defense, because for the first 25 minutes of the game, or 24 minutes we got down by so much that they were going to get some dunks, because the only way to get back in it, trying to score the ball, was to pretty much go to we're going to steal it or you're going to get a dunk mode. So wasn't as bad as it felt, like I said, but, it's a good team.
To your point about, feeling maybe a little too amped up, do you change maybe a little bit of how you go into like pregame routine at all? I'm sure you guys are hoping that y'all will play in some other big environments at home this season as well.
I wouldn't, I wouldn't change too much. We got to remind ourselves that the same routine we've done has been the same routine that's put us in a good position since in SEC play for sure. Right. So I just stay with it, and if it became a pattern, then I'd probably reevaluate it.
Does your messaging change at all coming off back-to-back losses? And do you use maybe what happened earlier this season when y'all had back-to-back losses and how y'all kind of bounce back as motivation?
Well, I didn't think we played well in our back-to-back losses. We early in the year. We played Oklahoma State. We were not very good at all. Central Florida, we were actually good for about 25 minutes and not good. I think we played really well at Alabama. We didn't play well in the last game, but it wasn't an effort deal. It wasn't a physicality deal. So I don't really keep up. I keep up with how we're playing more than anything, more than wins or losses. So I'd stay with what we got, and knowing that we have to have the humility as a program to know that just like every other team, every night's not going to be perfect. I watched North Carolina State play Louisville last night, and North Carolina State's been a great defensive team, an in-state tournament team, and got beat by about 40 and gave up 120 points. You'll look up, and Alabama's a very good team, and they got pounded by 30. You got Missouri beat Florida. You got Vandy's a great team, and Oklahoma goes in there and gets them. It's just the way that it is. You got to understand that, how could this happen to us where we can't make a shot? That's what it is. We got to have the humility to understand that and know that the SEC, the SEC race, man, it's a gauntlet, and you got to have perseverance to keep going and get to the next game.
When you look at eligibility stuff, just going back to that real quick, how much of a topic of discussion is that among other coaches that you maybe talk with right now? And just, are there any things that you guys are talking about trying to fix or change as it currently stands?
With the eligibility stuff?
Yeah.
There'll be topics in the off season. I think the biggest deal with eligibility when it gets down to all this stuff is these ideas that people have. They're to take up in the off season, right? That's where you take it up. Is if we think, for example, if we think that, and you're asking the question about discussing it or implementing it. If we think because we can make a lot of threes from 30 feet, and yet they're giving people 3 points because they can make 3-pointers at 23 feet, why can't they be 4-pointers at 30 feet? We'll use it as something after the season we talk about. We're not going to go in the middle of the season and say, well, we feel that they're making 23-footers, so let's make these worth 4 points all of a sudden in the middle of the season. Right? That's not how it works. You go to the end of the season and we discuss that, and then everybody kind of votes on it, and then we go from there.
I guess though, is it tough when some of that bleeds through into the season, throughout the middle of the season?
Well, is anybody, you got to have clarity on whether it's rules, whether it's who you can recruit. There has to be clarity, like the Europeans, for example, right? Everybody knew the Europeans were going to be eligible to come over here. We knew that in the recruiting cycle. Every coach knew that. Everybody knew that. So therefore, everybody got to recruit the Europeans, right? So that was, to me, very fair. We all knew it. So that's what's got to happen, with any rule change. And I'm not talking about any specific team. I don't want, I don't want anybody crying out there. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just talking about in general, right? There's got to be clarity with what you do where everybody has the ability to be playing on a level playing field, right? And that usually is done in the off season, so everybody has clarity going into the next season.
Why is it that European players who play professionally are eligible? What's the difference? Do you know?
While they're eligible?
Why they're eligible as opposed to what Alabama?
Yeah. Okay, well, first off, it's the rules are clear about the NBA draft, right? So I'm not saying, and then the nature of the European system is totally different than here. There's no high schools. They come up in the farm system in a pro style farm system, right? They play for that club coming all the way up. So they're essentially, as soon as they start high school, they're kind of a pro in that regard, right? And that's why. Now, someone could argue, well, that, and I'm not disagreeing or agreeing that, hey, well, these people are eligible. Why can't we do this for these players or this for their players? They're, well, okay, that's something to talk about. And then after the season, we should talk about it,
Anything else for Coach?
Was there any conversation with the league officer or anything about what happened after the game, or is that pretty much just put to bed?
I think there's just a blanket deal that people try to get into. I didn't see much of it, like people ask me about it. Great. I'm really glad when we have teams that are have won national championships and in first place in the league, that if they get a win, they're so freaking happy. Like that means something. Like it's like if people got, if it's like, man, it got to be a lot of talk and a lot of jawing. That meant so much because they value that we're pretty good, right? So like the more that goes on, the more I'm like, good, we're getting there. That means something to them, So I like that personally. You know what I'm saying? And we'll be good. Be good.
All set? All right, thank you guys.
See ya.